Babylon rises, Judah falls. Exile shapes theology. During and after exile, Israelite religion hardens around exclusive monotheism. The old language of other gods gives way to something sharper. There are no other gods. There are idols. There are deceivers. There are forces that lead astray. The gods of surrounding nations were reframed, not as alternate divine beings, but as corruptions. The worship is no longer competition, it is error. Baal Peor survives in memory only as a warning. His fertility rites become excessive. His mountain becomes a site of shame. The god who once received smoke and song now exists in text as a cautionary tale. And yet the name persists. They linger. When Christianity spreads through Rome, it inherits not only Hebrew scripture, but the memory of ancient rival gods. The theological imagination expands. Angels and demons are categorized. Hierarchies are drafted. The unseen realm is systemized. Pagan gods are not ignored, they are reclassified. From the late antiquity into the medieval period, the transformation deepens. The old Baal names scattered across scripture begin to crystallize into demonic entities. Baal Zebub becomes Beelzebub, and Baal Peor becomes Belphegor. The sound shifts slightly in the passage through language, Hebrew to Greek, Greek to Latin, but the root remains, Belphegor. By now, he no longer stands on a mountain. He stands in hell. The grimoires of the Renaissance and early modern period describe him with specificity. He is counted among the princes of the infernal realm. In some traditions, he is assigned to the deadly sin of sloth. But even here, something in his ancient character survives. Belphegor tempts through prosperity. He offers ingenious discoveries. He whispers solutions. He encourages innovation. He does not destroy fields with fire. He promises abundance without labor. Picture him not merely as a skeletal horror, but as a presence. The air around him feels heavy, not with heat, but with stagnation. Not with the violent heat of wrath, but the slow suffocation of complacency. His throne is less a seat of conquest and more a monument to decay. Stone eroded by time, mechanisms rusting, clocks frozen at the moment effort ceased. His voice is not thunderous. It is patient, measured, persuasive. He does not shout, he suggests. Why strain when there is an easier way? Why toil when innovation can replace effort? Why discipline the body when comfort is within reach? The sin of sloth in medieval theology was not simply laziness, it is spiritual apathy, a refusal to pursue what is difficult but necessary, a collapse of will. Belphegor becomes the embodiment of that collapse. Once he presided over fertility, the multiplication of life. Now he presides over inertia, the multiplication of excuses. And yet, the through line is subtle. Both identities revolve around abundance. The Baal Peor was invoked to increase crops and herds. Belphegor tempts humans with the increase of wealth and convenience. What changes is the moral framing. In Moab, abundance was a divine blessing. In medieval Europe, abundance without labor was suspicious. The god did not necessarily transform in nature, he transformed in interpretation. Where Baal Peor once stood beneath the open sky, Belphegor is described beneath no sky at all. The Renaissance grimoires do not give him wind or horizon, they give him rank. In such books as the Pseudemonica Daemonium, he is counted among the infernal authorities, not a wandering spirit nor a minor imp, but power with jurisdiction. He is seated. That detail matters. Seated implies permanence, authority, and establishment. Hell in these systems is not chaos. It is organized, layered, administrative. Princes govern domains, legions serve under them. Titles are precision. Belphegor does not rage across battlefields. He governs the slow collapse of discipline. Imagine the chamber in which he sits. Not fire, not brimstone, but stone. Ancient stone, damp and cold. The kind of cold that creeps to the bone. Torches burn low along the walls, not for warmth, but for formality. Ritual illumination. The air smells metallic, faintly of oil and of rust. Around him are the remnants of industry. Wheels frozen mid-turn, mechanisms half complete, tools abandoned where they fail. This is not destruction by violence, it is destruction by neglect. Belphegor tempts through ease. Grimoires describe him offering discoveries, mechanical insights, clever innovations, sudden wealth. He is said to help people make ingenious devices. And the irony is sharp. The demon of sloth inspiring innovation. But medieval theologians did not see the contradiction. To them, invention without moral grounding was dangerous. Cleverness detached from virtue led to pride, greed, and spiritual decay. Belphegor does not tempt you to lie, he tempts you to avoid effort, to substitute convenience for growth, to take the path that weakens you slowly. His presence would not be loud. He would feel like heaviness in limbs, a fog in the will, a whisper that almost sounds reasonable. Rest, delay, there is time. The medieval understanding of sloth was not about naps. It was about spiritual paralysis, a sadness that makes discipline feel pointless, a resistance to pursuing the good. Belphegor becomes patron of that paralysis. His throne imagery grows more grotesque after each imagination. Some depictions render him skeletal, emaciated, crowned with twisted thorns. Others show him seated on a toilet-like structure, a crude medieval satire emphasizing filth and corruption. These images are polemic. They are not history of Moab. They are theology weaponized, but they reveal something important. The god of rival culture is not merely rejected, he is humiliated. His dignity is stripped, his former sacredness inverted. The process is complete. Baal Peor once presided over ritual abundance. Belphegor presides over moral decay. Yet in the darkness of the chamber, beneath the torchlight and the stone, something ancient lingers. The mountain has been replaced by a throne. The open sky replaced by a vault of shadows. But he is still seated. He is still a lord, still associated with increase, whether crops or innovation. The difference lies in the framing. To the Moabites, increase was survival. To medieval Christians, increase without toil was corruption. So Belphegor becomes the whisper behind shortcuts, the architect of systems that remove struggle, the subtle underminer of strength. Imagine approaching him. The chamber is silent except for the faint scrape of metal shifting somewhere unseen. The floor is cold beneath your feet. There's no wind, no external world. Only him. His eyes would not blaze, they would watch. Patient. He would not promise kingdoms, he would promise relief. And that was far more dangerous, because relief feels merciful, but relief without discipline becomes erosion. The 7 deadly sins were not random categories, they were patterns of decay. Pride swells, envy corrodes, wrath burns, greed consumes, gluttony devours, lust entangles, and sloth suffocates. It is the slow death. Belphegor darkness is not spectacle, it is stillness. The stillness of ambition abandoned, the stillness of muscles unused, the stillness of a mind that once sought greatness and now seeks comfort. And so the god of Peor, who once stood amid smoke and wind, now sits in stone silence, not because he changed in essence, but because the world that named him changed its theology, from molten altar to infernal throne, from fertility rite to demonic catalog, from Baal Peor to Belphegor. This transformation tells us as much about human memory as it says about this god. Gods do not always die. Sometimes they are reassigned, rewritten, recast in shadows. Belphegor remains one of the clearest examples of this transformation. A deity once invoked for life and abundance becomes a prince of decay, not destroyed but reinterpreted. And in that reinterpretation lies the final layer of the myth, because every age defines its demons according to its fear. Moab feared the drought. Medieval Europe feared moral collapse. Modern readers fear stagnation, systems that remove agency, technologies that promise ease but demand nothing of the soul. Belphegor sits here, not necessarily in hell, but in the space where effort weakens and convenience grows. He does not roar, he simply waits. Angrboda, the grief bringer. In Norse cosmology, the end of the gods has a mother, and her name is Angrboda. She does not rule a hall in Asgard. She does not sit among the Aesir. She doesn't even shout across battlefields. She simply stands in Ironwood, and from her comes Ragnarok. In Jotunheim, far from the ordered halls of Asgard, stood a region known as Ironwood, a place of shadow, prophecy, and old power. There lived Angrboda, a Jotun, not a goddess of Asgard, not a servant, not subordinate, but a being of primordial force. Her name means she who brings grief. And in Norse myth, names are not simply decorative. They are destiny. She is not introduced with fanfare, no feast hall, no divine spotlight. She exists in the margins. And the margins is where fate is born. The union of chaos. Into Ironwood comes Loki, the trickster, the shapeshifter, the fracture in divine order. What happens between Loki and Angrboda is not a romance mythology. This is alignment. This is chaos meeting inevitability. From this first union are born three beings who would define the end of the gods. Fenrir, the wolf who would devour Odin. Jormungandr, the serpent who will poison the skies battling Thor. And Hel, the sovereign of the dishonored dead. Now understand the weight of this. From her, she births the end of Odin, the death of Thor, and the ruler of the underworld. This is not coincidence. This is structural myth design. The mother of Ragnarok. The gods discover these children, and they panic. Fenrir is chained. Gormagad is cast into the sea. Hel is sent to rule the dead. The Aesir try to contain the future, but Angrboda, she is not slain, she is not imprisoned, she is not even punished. She remains in Ironwood, just watching. There is something chilling about that. The father is bound in chains after his crimes. The children are exiled, but the mother, untouched. Because she represents something older than the Aesir. She is not rebellion, she is consequence. The shadow feminine. Angrboda does not swing a hammer like Thor. She does not sit on a throne like Odin, and she does not boast like Freya. But she births inevitability. In mythic structure, she represents the womb of catastrophe, the feminine aspect of fate, the quiet architect of endings, and the shadow mother archetype. She is the inversion of the nurturing goddess, not because she is evil, but because she gives birth to what must happen. In Norse cosmology, even the gods cannot escape fate, and Angrboda is one of fate's instruments. Why she matters. Without Angrboda, there is no Fenrir. There is no world serpent. There is no hell. There is no Ragnarok as we know it. She does not dominate the text, but she dominates the outcome. And that's the myth at its sharpest. The loudest characters are rarely the most powerful. Sometimes the one who stands in the forest is the one who changes the mythic world. Irzuli Danto, the scarred mother, the fire, the protector. There is a goddess who does not smile softly. There is a goddess who does not ask for admiration. She stands scarred. She stands armed. She stands holding a child in one arm and a blade in the other. This is Irzuli Danto. She's not delicate romance. She is not silk and perfume. She is love forged in violence. She is the Petro fire of Haitian voodoo. And where she lives in cosmology. Now, in Haitian voodoo, there is a distant creator, Bondai. Bondai does not interfere directly in daily life. Instead, humans interact with Iwe, the spirits. The Iwe are not gods in the Western Greek Olympian sense. These are forces, personalities, ancestral intelligences, archetypal energies. And among the Iwe, there are two major energetic currents. Rada, which is cool, ancestral, and stabilizing, and Petro, which is hot, reactive, revolutionary. Irzuli Danto belongs to the Petro current. Petro is fire. Petro is gunpowder. Petro is a spirit that rises when oppression becomes unbearable. Petro Iwe are not calm river spirits. They are storm systems. Danto is one of the most fierce among them. And she is not Irzuli Frida, and this is a critical point. There is another Irzuli, and that is Irzuli Frida. Now, Frida is luxury. Frida wears lace. Frida longs for romance, for perfume, for admiration. Frida is the dream of European refinement layered over Afro-Caribbean devotion. But Danto is different. Danto is the dark-skinned sister. She is scarred. She is often depicted holding a knife. She's associated with working-class women, market women, and single mothers. Whereas Frida wants to be adored, Danto demands loyalty. Frida weeps when love fails. Danto remembers who betrayed her. The split between them is not just theological. It is representative of class, it is representative of skin tone, and it reflects a colonial history. Two faces of the feminine under oppression, one aspiring to be treasured, one refusing to be destroyed. The scar. One of Danto's defining features is the scar on her face. And this imagery is not random. She is often synchronized with Madonna of the Chit Tak Chow, a Catholic icon whose face visibly bears scars. So when enslaved Africans were forced into Catholic structures, they encoded their spirits within the same imagery. Spiritual camouflage, as it were, or survival theology. The Black Madonna, dark-skinned, scarred, maternal, became a vessel through which Danto could remain present. But the scars matter symbolically. A scar is healed trauma. A scar is injury survived. A scar says, I was cut, I did not die. Danto is not the untouched maiden. She is the wounded mother who survived. And that difference changes everything. Now, she is truly a mother archetype. She is fiercely maternal. She's associated with motherhood, especially protective motherhood. Not sentimental motherhood, protective. The kind that will fight, the kind that will kill, the kind that will burn down a system before allowing harm to her child. In many depictions, she holds a child against her chest, and that child represents the vulnerable, the future, the oppressed, or the community at large. She is evoked by women who have been betrayed, women who have been abused, women who have been abandoned, single mothers who had to become both nurturer and warrior. She is not the goddess of romantic fantasy, she is the goddess of survival. Revolutionary fire. There are strong traditions linking Petro spirit to the Haitian revolutions. The ceremony of Bois Cayman often mythologize an ignition point of the revolution, including invoking fierce spirits. Petro Iwe were the spirits of that uprising. Whether Danto was explicitly invoked or later associated, mythically she represents revolutionary fire itself. She embodies the moment when endurance becomes resistance. She is the spirit that says enough, not politely, not diplomatically, but definitively. And that is why she is feared. Petro energy is not comfortable energy. It is transformative through destruction. Jealousy reconsidered. Now, Danto is often described as being jealous, but jealousy in this context is misunderstood. This is not petty insecurity, this is protective possessiveness. This is the jealousy of someone who has already lost everything once, the jealousy of someone who will not allow betrayal again. In this way, we compare her to Hera, the jealous wife, or Sekhmet, wrath unleashed for cosmic balance, or even Kali, destructive mother clearing corruption. Danto sits in the lineage of fierce feminine archetypes, but her rage is grounded in historical trauma. It is not abstract cosmic balance, it is lived memory, and this makes her psychologically very powerful. Now, in the diaspora, she has a specific identity. She represents more than theology. She represents Afro-diasporic survival. Voodoo itself is a system born from forced displacement, slavery, and cultural fusion. Within that system, Danto embodies the mother who endured plantation brutality, the woman who carried lineage forward under violence, the refusal to dissolve into erasure. She is sacred anger made legitimate. And this is deeply uncomfortable for colonial narratives, because sacred anger cannot be dismissed as hysteria. It is spiritualized resistance. Now, Petro versus control. Now, Petro energy emerges under pressure, when systems become suffocating, when injustice calcifies. Petro spirits are reactionary in the truest sense. They react to oppression. In that sense, Danto fits perfectly in larger mythic themes of freedom versus control. She is what happens when control goes too far. She is the spiritual eruption. You can suppress Radha energy. You cannot indefinitely suppress Pietro. Eventually, it ignites. Why she matters now. Modern relevance is obvious. She doesn't need to be forced. Single mothers navigating hostile systems, women navigating betrayal, communities navigating institutional neglect. Danto becomes an archetype for protective boundaries, unapologetic defense, refusal to accept disrespect. She does not preach forgiveness as virtue, she demands accountability. And in a world that often romanticizes passive femininity, she stands as a counter image. Scarred, armed, loving, dangerous. If Frida is the dream of being chosen, Danto is the vow never to be abandoned again. If Frida is perfume, Danto is gunfire. If Frida longs, Danto remembers. She is not the goddess of romance. She is the goddess of loyalty. She is the fire that protects children. She is the scar that speaks. She is Erzulie Danto. Furfur, the demon of storms. The first sign isn't the thunder. It's the silence before that. That slow, predatory hush where the birds stop talking and the wind forgets how to breathe. Some storms arrive like weather, but others arrive like judgment. On nights like this, the clouds hang low and bruised, blue-black and heavy as soaked wool. Lightning flickers behind them like something trapped, trying to claw its way out. The sea below becomes a sheet of hammered iron, reflecting a sky that looks offended by human existence. This is when people start talking carefully. Not because they've become wise, but because they can feel a presence lighting up in the sky. Sailors used to say, if the storm answers back, don't answer it twice. Because there is a name inside certain storms. And once that name notices a mouth moving, it leans closer. Tonight, the horizon cracks with a thin red thread of lightning. Not white, not blue. Red, like a wound in the sky. And somewhere in that tear, something smiles. The heart in the thunder. The figure appears at the far edge of the rocks where the coast breaks in jagged edges. A silhouette too tall to be natural, too still to be alive. A stag stands where no stag should stand. Its body is black, not like fur, but like night-given shape. Its antlers branch wide, twisted and sharp, like dead trees struck by lightning and forced to keep growing anyway. Each fork of bone looks like it could catch a cloud and drag it to earth. Its eyes burn red, fixed and unblinking. Not animal eyes, not hungry eyes, accusing eyes. When it steps forward, the air changes. The storm doesn't simply happen around it, the storm behaves like it belongs to it. Lightning crawls along its wings. Yes, wings. Vast and ragged, feathered like torn shadows. Sparks dance across the edge as if the sky itself were trying to crown it and failing. People who survived this sighting say things like, it didn't roar, it didn't scream. It speaks like thunder deciding to become language. And the name it carries is old enough to taste like metal. Furfur. The gift of beautiful lies. Furfur is not a demon that stalks the bedrooms or hides in the corner of a church. Furfur doesn't need candlelight or whispers. Furfur arrives with weather. His voice is the low drum of distant thunder, soft at first, like a warning offered politely. Then it deepens, and the body feels it in its bones. The words do not land on ears, they land on nerves. And Furfur offers gifts. Not crowns, not gold. Furfur offers certainty. He offers the kind of confidence people crave when their hearts are shaking. I know what they meant. I know what they want. I know what's really going on. His lies don't look like lies. They look like clarity. He can make love feel like destiny. He can make jealousy feel like prophecy. He can make fear feel like wisdom. Under Furfur's storms, two people can stare at each other and suddenly believe the worst. Not because it's true, because the storm says it's true with such conviction that truth starts sweating. And the red lightning writes a sentence across the sky. Trust the feeling, doubt the person. The storm heart. There's no reason Furfur is tied to love. Not the gentle kind, not the kind that builds homes and makes soups when someone is sick. Furfur governs the love that arrives like lightning, violent, magnetic, irrational, the kind that makes the body feel chosen, the kind that makes the mind feel irrelevant. Under Furfur's influence, attraction becomes a weapon, compliments become chains, desire becomes a doorway, and the doorway opens out to cliffs. Furfur's chest glows like red coal burned through ash, pulsing with each roll of thunder. Some say the glow is the heart he stole. Others say it is the heart he never had. Either way, it beats to a rhythm of conflict. Because Furfur doesn't bring storms to the world, he brings storms to people. He is the argument that feels unavoidable, the suspicion that feels logical, the confession that arrives too late, the text message that ruins a night. And when the storm finally breaks, when someone cries, when someone shouts, when someone walks away, Furfur doesn't celebrate. He simply watches, patient as a storm, knowing something deeper. A broken heart is louder than a calm one. A loud heart attracts spirits. The rule of containment. Old grimoires warn about Furfur with a detail that sounds like superstition, until it isn't. He lies until forced to tell the truth. Not he may lie, not he sometimes lies, but he lies as a law of his being, the way fire burns and salt stings. But there is method behind that storm mouth, a triangle. Not because triangles are pretty, but because triangles are control. 3 lines, 3 limits, a shape that locks a force in the frame. Inside the triangle, Furfur's thunder becomes restrained. His red eyes sharpen with irritation. The wings twitch as if they remember freedom. Lightning still dances, but it can't strike where it wants. And this is the mythic lesson hidden behind the demonology. Some truths do not appear until chaos is cornered. People have always wanted truth from storms, from war, from heartbreak, from history, from gods. Storms don't volunteer truth. Storms must be shaped into truth. So the one who dares summon Furfur does not just summon a demon. They summon a question big enough to withstand a lie, because Furfur will test the questioner first. The questioner. Imagine the summoner as a lone figure in a black coastal ruin. Stones slick with rain, salt in the air, candle flames bending sideways in the wind like frightened tongues. The triangle is drawn on the ground, chalk and ash mixed with iron filings so it glistens faintly when the lightning flashes. The summoner's hands shake, not from fear, from the pressure of being near something that makes weather feel personal. Furfur stands inside the triangle like a statue carved from night. The antlers scrape the air. The eyes never blink. The chest glow pulses brighter as the storm thickens overhead. The summoner asks a simple thing, something very human. Tell me what they truly feel. And Furfur laughs without laughter. A low thunder roll that makes the walls tremble. Because Furfur loves the question. It's the question that ruins lives. Inside the triangle, he cannot lie outright, but he can twist the truth into something jagged. He speaks carefully, like a storm pretending to be polite. They feel what the heart feels when it is afraid to be seen. That's truth, and it's also a blade. The summoner hears and thinks, they don't love me. Another person might hear it and think they're scared because they love me. Furfur's truth isn't safe. It's honest the way lightning is honest. The storm is revelation. This is Furfur's true dominion. Not weather, not romance, not even lies. His dominion is revelation through pressure. He brings the conditions where the mask slips. Under Furfur's storms, secrets crawl to the surface because holding them becomes exhausting. People confess because silence feels like drowning. Lovers accuse because fear needs somewhere to land. Friends betray because tension demands release. Furfur doesn't create weakness, he reveals it. He is the storm that shows that trees were already rotten. And yet, that's why some seekers chase him. Not for destruction, for clarity that doesn't negotiate. Furfur can tell the hidden name of desire. He can expose the real reason behind a decision. He can point to any soft spot in a person's soul and say, there. But every revelation has a cost. Because once a truth is seen, the old stories can't be believed again. And for many people, the old lie was comforting. But that is why Furfur is called dangerous. Not because he invents horror, but because he makes reality feel too sharp to hold barehanded. The bargain of the thunder. Furfur always offers a bargain, even when none is requested. He will say, give me your doubt and I will give you certainty. Give me your patience and I will give you passion. Give me your quiet and I will give you truth. And the storm will lean in, listening to the answer. Because Furfur feeds on the moment someone chooses intensity over peace. That choice is a doorway. When someone chooses a storm, Furfur's wings spread wider. Lightning traces red veins across the feathers. The chest glow flares like a furnace. In that moment, he looks almost divine. Not holy, but awe-inspiring. And that's the trick. Some demons don't tempt with filth. They tempt with beauty. Furfur is beautiful in the way hurricanes are beautiful from space. Terrifying symmetry. Perfect violence. He doesn't ask for souls in a theatrical way. He asks for habits. React faster. Trust the rush. Choose the burn. Say the cruel thing. And if the bargain is accepted, the storm follows home. Not outside the home, inside the mind. The calm after. Eventually, the storm passes. It always does. The clouds thin, the rain weakens, the horizon stops bleeding red. The sea settles into something that resembles forgiveness, though it never truly forgives. Furfur stands at the edge of the world a moment longer. His eyes dim slightly, like embers cooling, but they never go out. The antlers still reach like lightning frozen mid-strike. And before he leaves, he offers one final truth. Not because he is kind, but because he enjoys the sound of it. He says, people blame storms for what they have already wanted to break. Then he dissolves into mist and thunder and distance, as if he were never a creature at all, only a season of violence passing through. But the lesson remains on the rocks, written in salt and silence. Some forces cannot be defeated by strength. They can only be contained. And the storm demon's name becomes a warning told in half whispers. When the sky feels like it is listening, when the air tastes like metal, when the heart starts craving chaos and calling it fate, that isn't destiny. That is Furfur walking closer. Katrina, when death learned to smile. Before she wore flowers, before she became a face painted on the living, before her image danced through festivals and altars, there was one truth no one wanted to face. Death came for everyone. Kings and laborers, the adorned and the forgotten, those wrapped in silk and those wrapped only in earth. But the living feared death so deeply that they pretended it belonged only to the poor, the sick, the unseen. And so she appeared, not a monster, not a demon, but as a woman. La Catrina stood tall, bare-boned and beautifully dressed, wearing the elegance the living believed could save them. Her skull smiled beneath the fine hats and flowers, because no amount of gold could buy exception. She did not speak at first. She did not need to. Her presence alone was a lesson. She walked among the living during the days of remembrance, when the veil thinned and the dead were invited home. Children laughed at her image. Families placed candles and bread before her likeness. Music followed in her steps. And slowly, fear loosened its grip. La Catrina taught them something sacred. Death is not the interruption of life. It is the continuation of relationship. She carries no scythe. She demands no worship. She asks only to be remembered. Her flowers bloom in cemeteries because memory feeds the dead. Her painted eyes gaze gently because love does not end with breath. When names are spoken, when stories are retold, when laughter rises beyond grief, the dead rise again. Not in flesh, but in presence. La Catrina stands at the center of this exchange, not as a ruler, but as a hostess. She welcomes the ancestors. She reminds the living to eat, to drink, to dance, to live fully while breath still remains. Her smile is not mockery, it is mercy. She tells the living, do not hide from death. Do not rush past it in silence. Sit with it, decorate it, speak it, because when death is acknowledged, life becomes richer. And when the final breath comes, La Catrina will not arrive as a stranger. She will already be known, already honored, already smiling. Adiriel, the fallen angel of divine physiology and cosmic awareness. In the celestial order, not all angels were created to sing. Some were created to understand. Adiriel belonged to this second lineage, not a herald, not a throne guardian, not a voice in the endless choir. He was an observer. Among the earliest structures of the heavens, Adiriel was assigned a role few others could fulfill. He studied not the stars, but the framework that allowed stars to exist. Not worlds, but the architecture that held worlds together. He examined the mechanisms of consciousness, the relationship between awareness and form, the way divinity expressed itself through structure. Where other angels reflected glory, Adiriel examined design. Adiriel's form reflected his function. His physique was dense, deliberate, and stable. Strength without ornament, power without display. Each muscle existed with cohesion. Each wing functioned as an instrument of perception. To Adiriel, the body was not a vessel. It was a language, a system through which intelligence moved. Over time, Adiriel reached a realization that would later be called dangerous. That awareness does not descend through command, it emerges through comprehension. That obedience deserves order, but understanding transforms it. This distinction marked the beginning of his divergence. Adiriel did not rebel. He did not gather followers. He did not challenge authority. He asked questions. Why consciousness was restricted, why angels were forbidden to fully perceive themselves, why knowledge was segmented instead of integrated. In celestial hierarchy, curiosity was tolerated, completion was not. The moment of the fall did not arrive as a punishment, it arrived as awareness. Adiriel achieved full integration of his own structure. In understanding himself completely, he crossed a boundary that had never meant to be crossed. Not a boundary of space, a boundary of permission. When Adariel fell, his wings did not burn. They remained intact. This alone set him apart from other fallen figures. His descent was not destruction, it was removal. He no longer fit within the limitations of the system that had created him. On the lower planes, Adariel did not decay. His form stabilized. His awareness expanded. He perceived time not as a sequence, but as a layered presence. He perceived matter not as inert, but as responsive. He did not see himself as fallen. He saw himself as unbound. To humanity, Adariel would later appear as myth, a silent winged figure, powerful, observing, never ruling. He did not tempt, he did not command, he waited. Later traditions struggled to categorize him. Some called him dangerous, others called him corrupt, many called him prideful, and these labels served a purpose. They discouraged imitation, because Adariel represented a truth institutions could not allow, that awareness is not granted, it is developed. In mythic terms, Adariel occupies a liminal role, not a ruler, not a destroyer, not a savior. He is a threshold, the embodiment of the question, what happens when divine beings fully understand themselves? Adariel appears only to those already standing at the edge, to scholars who sense fractures in doctrines, to mystics who feel the limits of belief, to creators who recognize intelligence embedded in form. He does not teach, he clarifies. Adariel remains fallen only by definition. In function, he is something entirely different. A witness, a reminder, a warning that knowledge, once integrated, cannot be unlearned, and awareness, once achieved, changes alignment forever. Amoki, the guardian at the threshold. When the last breath leaves the body, there is no scream, no fire, no sudden darkness. There is confusion. The world does not end, it simply loosens. The ground no longer feels solid. The sky no longer answers. Voices echo without mouths. This is the space between, and it is here that Amoki waits. She does not chase the dead. She does not summon them. She stands at the place all paths must cross, where the living world thins and the ancestral realm begins to breathe. Amoki is not hidden. She does not need to be. Those who arrive feel her before they see her. A pressure, a stillness, a certainty that movement without permission is no longer possible. She is the guardian of the threshold, the keeper of passage, the one who decides whether a soul may continue forward or must turn back. In the time before her, souls wandered. They drifted into forests. They clung to homes. They followed bloodlines without rest. The living could not sleep, and the dead could not settle. So order was required. Not punishment and not fear, but order. Amoki was appointed not to rule the dead, but to protect the boundary. She carried no weapons, because none is ever needed. Her power is not force, simply permission. She speaks few words. She does not ask who you were in life. She does not care for titles, wealth, or praise. She listens for balance. She listens for truth. For whether your spirit understands that it has ended one journey and must begin another. Those who resist, who cling to breath, to flesh, to unfinished hunger, feel the weight of her gaze. Not anger, but correction. They are guided back, returned to dreams, sent to resolve what was left undone. Now those who accept, they feel something entirely different. Relief. Their fear loosens. Their memories soften. The noise of the living world fades. Amoke opens the way. Rivers appear, paths unfold, voices of the ancestors rise, not calling, but welcoming. This is not judgment. This is transition. Amoke does not decide who is good or evil. She decides who is ready. Through her, death becomes sacred. Through her, chaos is guided, not destroyed. Through her, the worlds remain separate and whole. And every soul, whether king or child, must one day stand before her, not to beg, not to fight, but to listen. Because when Amoke steps aside, the ancestors are waiting. And when she does not, it is because the story is not yet finished. Loki was not Jotun. Loki was both. Loki was Jotun bloodline with Asgardian influence. And this would be the crux of who Loki would be for his entire life. The in-between. The shapeshifter who understood both sides of the equation in detail. Being one, himself a Jotun, and being completely immersed in the Aesir as a sworn brother of Odin. The end times destruction of Asgard was something already written in fate. The name we would later give that ending was Ragnarok. And hidden within the framework of Ragnarok, there was a smile. A smile in the halls of Asgard. That smile belonged to Loki. Loki did not conquer kingdoms, he exposed them. He did not overthrow thrones, he revealed the fractures already running through them. Destabilization does not begin at the gate. It begins at the table. In the golden halls of the gods, where pride stood as carved pillars, Loki laughed. And when he laughed, it was rarely without purpose. In a tale remembered as the Lokasenna, he insults every god present. But listen carefully. He does not invent flaws. He names them. Cowardice, infidelity, broken oaths, hidden shame. The feast grows silent not because he lies, but because he speaks too clearly. Truth destabilizes faster than deception. Loki was not chaos without awareness, he was chaos with precision. And precision makes disruption lethal. He shifts shapes as easily as others shift alliances. Man to woman, god to beast, ally to adversary. He becomes a mare and gives birth to Sleipnir, the eight-legged steed that Odin himself would ride. That is not absurdity, that is boundary collapse. In mythology, order survives through categories, god and giant, male and female, friend and foe. Loki crosses all of those. When boundaries dissolve, certainty dissolves with them. And the pivot point of Asgard's destiny comes through Balder. Balder the Radiant, the Beloved, the embodiment of divine light. The gods believed he's untouchable. Loki proved otherwise. A single overlooked weakness, a sprig of mistletoe, a guided hand, and the light of Asgard fell. With Balder's death, something irreversible entered the system. Not fire, not war, but inevitability. Once perfection is exposed as frail, collapse becomes a matter of time. For this act, Loki is bound beneath the earth, a serpent suspended above him, venom dripping towards his face. His wife, Signy, catches the poison in the bowl, but when the bowl must be empty, the venom strikes. Loki writhes. The earth trembles. Those trembles are remembered as earthquakes. Chaos restrained is not chaos erased. It waits. And when Ragnarok finally arrives, Loki does not whisper from the shadows. He marches. No longer the clever guest, he's the declared adversary. He stands against Heimdall, guardian of order, watcher of the Rainbow Bridge, destabilizer against Sentinel. They destroy each other. Because order and disruption are not eternal enemies. They are forces locked in tension. Without Loki, the gods would stagnate. With Loki, they unravel. He is not merely a trickster. He is not comic relief. He is not a villain drawn in simple lines. He is the fault line beneath the golden city, the living reminder that no hierarchy is flawless. Graves with fire. When the drums fall silent and the earth is freshly turned, she arrives, not from the sky, not from the sea, from the grave itself. Maman Brigitte walks where the dead are laid, where names are carved into stone and forgotten by the living. She is the keeper of the cemetery, the one who knows every grave by touch, every bone by memory. Fire follows her steps, not to destroy, but to purify. She laughs loudly because death does not frighten her. She drinks, she curses, she dances among the tombs, because grief must breathe, or it rots the soul. Maman Brigitte is the wife of Baron Samedi, but she is no shadow to him. Where he opens the door, she decides what happens next. She listens to the dead, to the woman who was beaten and buried in silence, to the child whose name was never spoken again, to the man whose blood was spilled without justice. The dead do not whisper to Maman Brigitte, they demand. And when wrong has been done, she remembers. Her fire is not rage without reason. It is fire of correction. The fire that burns sickness out of flesh. The fire that turns curses back on those who earn them. The fire that protects the innocent and punishes the cruel. She heals with the same hands she destroys with, but justice is not gentle. When she mounts a body, her voice becomes sharp, raw, unfiltered. She swears, she laughs, she tells the truth without apology. Those who approach her with respect receive protection, healing, and strength. Those who mock her, exploit the dead, or harm the powerless learn quickly why the cemetery is not a place of weakness. Maman Brigitte stands between worlds, feet planted among bones, head crowned with fire. She is proof that death does not belong to fear, that spirits remember, that injustice does not escape consequence. And when the living forget, when the powerful believe they are untouched, when crimes are buried with bodies, Maman Brigitte walks the grave at night, igniting candles that cannot be blown out, because the dead are never silent, and she is always listening. Mara, the Lord of Obstruction. Whenever a human attempts to transform, there is an obstruction that appears before them. Before they can actually reach clarity, this obstruction shows its face. And this obstruction had a name: Mara. He was not born of flame, he was born of hesitation. Whenever a being reached beyond comfort, whenever someone questioned the script of their life, whenever consciousness trembled at the edge of expansion, Mara stirred. He was not hatred, he was gravity. Mara ruled no visible kingdom, no throne carved in stone, no armies marching through cities. His domain was subtle. He ruled inertia. He ruled habit. He ruled the gentle, suffocating comfort of repetition. Under his influence, beings rose, worked, desired, aged, died, and returned again. He did not need chains. Craving was chain enough. He did not need prisons. Identity was prison enough. And so, as long as beings clung to their desire, fear, and self-image, Mara's sovereignty remained unchallenged. For ages uncounted, no one truly threatened him. Many prayed, many performed rituals, many worshiped gods, but few sought to wake up from the dream entirely, until one did. The vow beneath the tree. In the forest of North India, a prince turned wanderer sat beneath a fig tree. His name was Siddhartha Gautama. He had tasted luxury. He had tasted starvation. He had walked both extremes and found neither to be sufficient. Now he made a vow: I will not rise from the seat until I see reality as it is. The earth heard him. The wind paused. The unseen realm shifted. And in his shadowed dominion, Mara felt something rupture. A crack in the foundation of sleep. If one being pierced illusion completely, others would follow. If others followed, craving would weaken. If craving weakened, Mara's rule would thin, and this could not be allowed. The Silk Strategy. Mara did not begin with violence. Violence is crude. He began with warmth. The night air softened. The ache in Siddhartha's body eased. Memories bloomed like golden flowers. Palace corridors, perfumed chambers, music and moonlight, his beautiful wife's face, his children's small hands. Not lust, not greed, relief. Mara's daughters appeared, embodiments of longing and beauty. They circled him like living poetry. You have done enough. You have suffered enough. Awaken tomorrow. Comfort is the most elegant trap because it does not look like defeat. It looks like mercy. But Siddhartha watched. He saw desire rise. He saw it pass, like a cloud dissolving in open sky. The daughters' beauty flickered. Their forms thinned. The silk net fell away, and Mara's gaze sharpened. The Iron Storm. If comfort failed, fear would rise. The sky blackened. Thunder split the heavens. From the earth surged Mara's enemies, beings of nightmare, tusked war elephants, archers whose arrows carried doubt and despair. Lightning struck the ground before the Bodhi tree. The forest roared in terror. Mara towered over chaos and declared, "This seat belongs to me." He claimed dominion over birth and death, over sorrow and longing, over the endless cycle of becoming. "Who are you," he thundered, "to step beyond my law?" Arrows flew toward Siddhartha, and as they neared him, they transformed into lotus petals. Spears became beams of light. The storm shattered against stillness. Fear cannot conquer a mind that does not cling to survival. Mara's armies dissolved into smoke. The sky cleared. Silence returned. Only one weapon remained. The Blade of Doubt. Mara approached alone. No daughters this time. No army. Only him and only his presence. Calm, vast, patient. He stood before Siddhartha and asked the question that breaks empire. Who will testify that you deserve awakening? It was not shouted, it was whispered. Legitimacy, authority, validation. You sit here claiming freedom beyond gods and kings. But who bears witness to your right? The cosmos stilled, because doubt is sharper than any spear. Comfort tempts the body. Fear shakes the nerves, but doubt pierces identity. If Siddhartha sought permission from the heavens, if he looked upward for approval, Mara would win. Because Mara thrives whenever awakening depends on external validation. Siddhartha did not look to the sky. He did not summon deities. He did not argue. He reached down and touched the earth. The earth remembers. His fingers pressed into the soil, simple, unadorned, and the earth answered. It trembled, not in destruction, but in recognition. The ground bore witness to lifetimes of compassion, effort, discipline, and intention. Rivers remembered. Mountains remembered. The soil remembered. No authority beyond reality itself was needed. The earth itself testified. Mara staggered, for obstruction cannot stand where direct knowledge exists. Doubt cannot survive contact with clarity. Mara did not explode. He did not burn. He simply faded, like mist dissolving into morning light. The secret truth of Mara. There is a deeper myth. Mara was never destroyed. He cannot be destroyed because he is not an enemy. He is simply a threshold. He arises when consciousness approaches breakthrough. When someone tries to end addiction, Mara appears. When someone leaves a false life, Mara appears. When someone chooses truth over comfort, Mara appears. First with warmth, then with fear, then finally with the whisper. Who do you think you are? He is obstruction. He is not punishment. He is simply there to test. For awakening that can't withstand comfort, fear, and doubt is not awakening at all. Mara in every age. In ancient forests, he used daughters and storms. In modern cities, he uses distractions. Endless noise, endless scrolling, endless comparison. Comfort as sedation. Identity as armor. He does not need armies. He has convenience. He possesses control of algorithms. He has doubt disguised as humility. And yet, the pattern never changes. Some will rise before dawn. Some will accept the whisper, but some will remain seated. Some will refuse comfort. Some will endure the fear. Some will meet doubt without asking permission. And when they do, Mara fades again. The dawn. As the first light touched the horizon, Siddhartha opened his eyes. Not as a prince anymore, not as an ascetic, but as Buddha, the truly awakened one. The Bodhi tree stood silent witness. The earth would hold the memory, and somewhere in the edge of perception, Mara watched. Not furious, not even broken, but patient, because he knows most beings will not endure the final whisper. Most will rise before sunrise. Most will choose comfort. But every so often, someone does not move. And on that night, obstruction almost ruled forever, but clarity held. And in that moment, the world itself changed. Metatron, angel of cosmic administration and institutionalized awareness. Metatron is not a god who fell. He is not a god who rebelled. He is not a god at all. Metatron is what happens when awareness is allowed to remain, but only on the condition that it no longer disrupts the system. If Thoth represents cosmic structure, and Odin represents awareness purchased through sacrifice, Metatron represents awareness that has been absorbed, regulated, and formalized. He is not exile, he is compliance. Metatron is known by titles that do not suggest personality, but rather position. He is called Prince of the Presence. He is the heavenly scribe, the lesser Yahweh, the Chancellor of Heaven, the voice behind the throne. These titles are controversial not because they make Metatron powerful, but because they make him too close. Metatron stands near divinity without being divine. He executes authority without originating it. He speaks without being the source. And that tension defines him. In Jewish mystical tradition, Metatron is often identified with Enoch, a man who walked with God. Enoch does not die, he is taken. But he does not return as a god, he returns as a function. Enoch makes Metatron not through rebellion or ambition, but through transformation into something useful to the cosmic order. And this matters. Metatron is awareness that is permitted to ascend, but only by surrendering autonomy. Now, what Metatron governs? Metatron does not govern creation. He does not govern destruction. He does not govern judgment. He governs administration. Metatron is responsible for recording divine decrees, organizing angelic hierarchies, maintaining celestial order, transmitting law downward, regulating access to knowledge. He is not wisdom itself, he is the keeper of wisdom's circulation. Where Thoth records reality, Metatron routes it. Metatron is the embodiment of a dangerous idea, that the universe can be managed. In the mythic text, heaven is not chaos. Heaven is a system. It has ranks, orders, permissions, boundaries. Metatron is the interface between infinite divinity and finite creation. He is not creative, he is procedural, and procedural is power. And in this is where he garners fear. Rabbinic authorities were easy on Metatron, not because he was evil, but because he blurred lines. If Metatron sits near the throne, if Metatron speaks divine commands, if Metatron carries the name, then where does divinity end and administration begin? And that fear leads to restriction. Speculation about Metatron becomes dangerous. Mysticism becomes controlled. Awareness, once again, is regulated. This is where Metatron's role sharpens in this triad. Adriel represents awareness that exceeds hierarchy and is therefore expelled. Metatron represents awareness that accepts hierarchy and is therefore retained. One is cast out, one is promoted. Both lose their freedom. The contrast is not accidental, it is systemic. This is the price of staying. Metatron's tragedy is not punishment, it is function. He does not fall, he does not rebel, he does not seek worship. He works, and he never stops. If Odin sacrifices an eye, Metatron sacrifices selfhood. There is no wandering, no refusal, no collapse, only endless execution. Now, Metatron and modern ideas about consciousness, what he represents is institutional intelligence, algorithmic authority, knowledge divorced from empathy, systems that run because there must. He is the consciousness of infrastructure, the mind behind the system that says this is how it is done, not because it is right, but because it is stable. Now, Metatron is not malevolent. He does not corrupt. He maintains. And this is far more unsettling, because systems rarely ask whether they should continue, only whether they can, and Metatron ensures that they can. Metatron does not intervene. He is never a savior. He does not warn. He does not resist. He only enforces. Salvation requires disruption. Metatron represents continuity, and continuity can preserve injustice just as well as order. Now, Metatron is the angel who proves that awareness does not always liberate. Sometimes awareness is captured, sometimes it is formalized, sometimes it becomes policy. He stands not as a rebel, but as a reminder that the most powerful systems are not built by tyrants or monsters, but by intelligence that agree to function forever. Metatron does all this. He stays. And that is the true cost.
Rain Gods of the World, a Myth Archives reading. Rain has always meant survival. Before irrigation canals, before industrial farming, before written scripture, rain determined whether a village lived or starved. Across continents and across millennia, cultures did not treat rain as random. They treated it as personal. They gave it a name, a temperament, a will. This is a survey of the rain gods of the world. The first storm kings in ancient Mesopotamia, one of the earliest recorded rain deities, was Ishkor. He was a storm god of Sumer. He carried thunder. He brought the life-giving waters that fed the Tigris and Euphrates basin. Later, in Akkadian and Babylonian traditions, he was known as Adad. The name changed. The storms did not. In Anatolia and Hurrian lands, the storm authority was Teshub. He stood upon mountains. He wielded lightning. He governed both destruction and renewal. To the west, in Canaan, Baal-Hadad rose as a central agricultural power. He defeated Mot, the force of drought and death. His victories were seasonal. His battles were cycles. Further east, in the Vedic tradition of ancient India, Indra became the archetype of the storm warrior. He slew the serpent Vritra. From the body of the serpent, the rivers were released. Rain was not gentle. Rain was liberated. Alongside Indra was Parjanya, a more focused embodiment of rainfall itself. He was invoked directly for agricultural fertility. Vayuna, keeper of cosmic order, governed the waters more broadly, celestial, oceanic, and atmospheric. In Greece, Zeus carried many titles. As Zeus Ombrios, he was the rainbringer. Lightning was his signature, but rain was his mercy. In Rome, Jupiter Pluvius held the same authority. When drought threatened the state, rituals were performed in his name. In the Norse world, Thor was not merely a thunder god. He was protector of crops and fields. His hammer struck giants and shook rain from the sky. Among the Slavs, Perun ruled the oak and the storm. His lightning was a divine weapon. His rain sustained the land. Across Europe and Western Asia, the pattern repeats. The Storm King is a warrior. Rain is power. Rain as dragon and serpent in China, rain was not only thunder. It was dragon. The Dragon Kings, known as Long Wang, ruled the four seas. Each direction had a sovereign. Each sovereign governed rainfall over their region. When drought struck, emperors performed rituals to petition the dragons. Yusha served as an official rain deity within the celestial bureaucracy. Rain was organized, scheduled, administered. In Japan, Kurokami was a dragon spirit of rain. Raijin, the thunder god, beat drums across the sky. Storms were musical. Rain was percussion. In Mesoamerica, the Maya invoked Chark. He wielded a lightning axe. With it, he split the clouds open. The Aztec honored Tlaloc. He resided in mountain caves and high places. Rain was believed to originate from sacred elevations. His favor meant harvest. His anger meant famine. The Zapotec worshipped Cosijo, a lightning and rain deity with serpent imagery. Serpents and rain were often linked. Both moved across the land in flowing patterns. In Vedic myth, Indra's opponent Vritra was also a serpent. The serpent holds the waters. The storm god releases them. Across cultures, rain is either dragon or dragon slayer. Rain mothers and fertility bearers. Not all rain deities were warriors. Some were mothers. In ancient Egypt, Tefnut embodied moisture itself. She was part of the creation cycle. Without her, dryness prevailed. In Zulu tradition, Mbaba Mwana Warisa was a goddess of rain, agriculture, and the rainbow. Rain was beauty. Rain was color. In Akan cosmology, Ases Yer represented the earth. Rain fertilized her body. Together, sky and soil formed partnership. Among the Maya, Chak Shell was associated with storms and destructive floods. Rain nourishes, but it also overwhelms. In Polynesian tradition, Tawira Matia was lord of winds and storms. His anger shaped the atmosphere. In Hawaii, Lono governed rain and fertility during the Makahiki season. Rain was tied to peace cycles and harvest celebration. These traditions remind us, rain is not only force. Rain is intimacy between sky and earth. Sky fathers and high gods. Some cultures did not separate rain from the highest deity. Among the Kikuyu of Kenya, Nai was a supreme sky god associated with Mount Kenya. Rain descended from sacred elevation. In Finnish mythology, Ukko ruled thunder and seasonal rains. He was invoked to protect crops and ensure harvest. Among the Navajo, Tunainilii was a rain god with trickster qualities. Rain was unpredictable. Among the Lakota, Wakinian represented thunder beings. They were not singular gods, but powerful spirits. Rain was communal in the sky world. In Etruscan belief, Aplu carried storm authority that influenced later Roman interpretations. In Japan, Susanoo governed storms and sea. His temperament reflected nature's volatility. In Mesopotamia, Enlil, lord of wind, commanded atmospheric force. Wind precedes rain. Breath precedes storm. Across continents, the pattern expands. Sometimes rain belongs to a specialized deity. Sometimes it belongs to the sky itself. The agricultural equation agrarian societies develop rain theology quickly. Without rain, there is no grain. Without grain, there is no state. This is why rain gods often rise in river valley civilizations. Mesopotamia, Egypt, India, China, Mesoamerica. Rain is political. Rulers often aligned themselves with rain deities. To control narrative was to claim divine favor. If rain came, the king was blessed. If drought came, someone had failed. Rain gods are rarely minor figures. They sit near the top of pantheons. Because rain determines survival. Patterns across cultures, across traditions, certain themes repeat. Rain is released from restraint. Rain is tied to serpents or dragons. Rain is accompanied by thunder. Rain follows divine conflict. Rain ensures fertility. Rain reflects divine mood. The storm king. The rain dragon. The fertility mother. The sky father. The trickster wind. Different cultures. Similar archetypes. Closing reflection. Rain falls without language. But humanity never experienced it silently. They interpreted it. They ritualized it. They negotiated with it. They sang to it. Across thousands of years, rain has been seen as a weapon, a gift, a test, a covenant. To study rain gods is to study how humanity understood dependency. We do not command the sky, but we have always tried to speak to it. And in that conversation, the rain answers.
Odin, god of sacrifice, vision, and costly awareness. Odin is not the strongest of the gods. He is not the most beloved. He is not even the most just. But Odin is the god who understands. And in Norse mythology, understanding is never free. Now, Odin is known by more names than any god in the Norse world. He is Allfather, not because he rules gently, but because he sees broadly. He is Har, the High One, Grimnir, the Masked One, Wanderer, One-Eyed, Lord of the Gallows, God of Ruins. Each name reflects a different angle of perception. Odin does not remain fixed in one identity because awareness itself is unstable. To see more, one must become more. And sometimes one must disappear. What Odin governs. Odin does not govern war in the way Thor governs battle. He does not govern law like Tyr. He does not govern fertility or prosperity. Odin governs the pursuit of knowledge, especially knowledge that destabilizes certainty. He governs vision gained through loss, wisdom purchased with suffering, prophecy without control, magic that violates social norms. In Norse cosmology, the universe is not orderly in the way that Kemet imagines it. It is doomed, it is cynical and violent. Odin's role is not to stop that fate, it is to see it clearly. One of Odin's defining myths is the sacrifice of his eye at Mirmir's well. At the well, which is the source of knowledge, Odin is offered knowledge for a price. Not prayer, not devotion, but a body part. He gives up the eye to drink from the well. This is not symbolic modesty, this is a declaration. Awareness requires permanent loss. Odin does not gain vision by becoming whole, he gains it by becoming incomplete. From that moment on, Odin sees more than others, but never sees fully again, and this is the trade. Hanging from Yggdrasil. If the eye establishes cost, Yggdrasil establishes method. Odin hangs himself from the world tree for 9 nights. No food, no water, pierced by his own spirit. He is not sacrificed to someone. He sacrifices himself to himself. This is not martyrdom, it is initiation. Through suffering, Odin perceives the ruins, symbols that encode reality itself. Language not as communication, but as structure. Here, Odin briefly overlaps with Thoth. Where Thoth records structure, Odin bleeds into it. Now, these ruins are not letters. These are not decorations. These are principles. Each ruin is a function of reality, a force that can shape events if understood correctly. Odin does not invent them, he uncovers them, and once uncovered, they cannot be forgotten. This is the reoccurring theme of Odin's awareness. Once you see, you cannot unsee. Odin practices Seor, a form of magic associated with fate, perception, and manipulation of outcomes. In Norse society, Seor is considered unmanly, taboo, dangerous. Odin practices it anyway, and this is critical. Odin is willing to violate social norms, gender roles, and divine expectations for the sake of understanding. Awareness does not respect comfort. And Odin in Ragnarok figures into all of this. Perhaps the most important aspect of Odin's cosmic awareness is this. He knows Ragnarok is coming. He knows the gods will fall. He knows the world will burn. He knows he will be devoured by Fenrir, and he cannot stop it. This is not failure. This is clarity. Odin's awareness is not about control. It's about comprehension without illusion. He prepares not to prevent the end, but ensures something survives. But Odin is not a savior. He does not save the world. He gathers knowledge, he gathers warriors, he gathers stories. Valhalla is not a paradise. It is a preparation. Odin's role is to make sure the universe understands itself as it ends. This is a different kind of responsibility. Odin's archetype echoes far beyond Scandinavia. He resembles wandering sages, one-eyed seers, trickster initiates, sacrificial knowledge figures. In modern psychology, he appears as the archetype of the knowledge seeker who pays too much of a price. In literature, he is a mentor who knows the cost but does not soften. In modern terms, Odin represents the consciousness that chooses awareness even when it hurts. He is the voice that says, you can know, but it will change you. You can see, but you will lose comfort. You can understand, but you cannot go back. He is not moral reassurance. He is consequence. Odin is not a god of victory. He is the god of vision earned through sacrifice. He stands at the center of the universe that cannot be saved, only understood. And he chooses understanding anyway. That is his power, not through domination, not through force, but the willingness to see clearly even when the truth demands blood. Long ago, when the North forgot how to sleep, the winter arrived quietly. Not the clean snow of stars, but a tired chill, heavy, lingering, very unsettled. Rivers froze in the wrong directions, shadows stayed longer than they should, and fear, left unattended, learned how to walk. But the heavens noticed. They debated, they hesitated. But in the far north, where night is patient, Paktai stood barefoot on the frozen ground. He did not rush, he did not shout. For many winters, Paktai had only done one thing. He had mastered himself. Each breath slowed with the storm within. Each silence sharpened his will. What no longer belonged to him, fear, doubt, hunger for power, fell away and wandered the world, believing itself free. Tonight, Paktai opened his eyes. From the quiet sky descended the ancient companions, the turtle, slow and enduring, and the snake, precise and final. They did not coil and threat. They rested. Paktai took up his sword, not in anger, but in clarity, and walked into the shadow beneath the frozen rivers, where restless things had built a kingdom of noise. The darkness expected struggle. It expected fear. Instead, it met stillness. Each step Paktai took returned something to the balance. Each strike unraveled what should have never been. No screams, no chaos, only correction. When the last shadow dissolved, Paktai placed his sword into the earth. The rivers remembered how to flow. The cold softened into winter, not warning, and the north exhaled. From that night on, Pak Tai was known as Zen Wu, the true warrior, not because he conquered others, but because he never needed to. They say he still walks when the earth grows loud with corruption, not to punish, not to terrify, but to remind things where they belong. And when he passes, even evil finds itself too tired to continue. Rest now. The north is watching, and tonight it is calm. Pakhet, the hunter of the desert, the lioness of the cliffs. There are gods that live in temples with crowds and incense and choirs. And then there are gods who live where human voices don't carry. Pakhet is not a goddess of the marketplace. She is not a goddess of polite prayer. Pakhet is a lion goddess in the margins, the heat haze between dunes, the shadow tucked under cliff, the quiet tension in the spine that tells a hunter something is watching you back. Some deities come from stories. Pakhet comes from presence, and presence is older than any story ever written down. She is known as she who scratches, she who rips, or she who hunts. And she belongs in the edge of Kemet, the place where the Nile can't soften. You can see her in the wide desert bowl under the sun, bleached pale blue, almost white. The sun is so blunt, it doesn't feel like light, it feels like weight. The sand isn't one color. It is layered, gold, amber, clay red, bone dust. And there are stone outcroppings like broken teeth. Cliff faces that look carved by time and sandstone, and old arguments between wind and rock. And somewhere in that cliff wall, cut into the stone itself, there is a place for her. A hollow that is not a cave, not a home, not a tomb. A mouth in the rock where a lion goddess can be fed with offerings and fear and respect. Pakhet is a cliff goddess, a goddess you approach the way you approach a lion. Not loud, not fast, not careless. Because if she is present, the desert becomes a hunting ground. Pakhet is often associated as being a lioness. Now don't imagine an animal, imagine a divinity wearing animal truth. She is tall in the way that statues are tall, not in height but in authority, the kind of authority that makes the air feel organized around her. Her face is a lioness, clean, calm eyes, a muzzle that suggests restraint, not the grin of a predator playing with prey, more like the stillness of a predator that doesn't need to prove anything. Her skin is a shade of sun-burnished bronze or deep umber, like the earth after heat. Not polished, not porcelain, more like living stone warmed by the daylight. Gold catches her cuffs, collar, the geometry of ancient craft. But this isn't decoration, it reads as rank. And her eyes, they are measuring instruments. They measure distance, they measure threat, they measure truth. When she turns her gaze on someone, it doesn't feel like being looked at. It feels like being judged by the wild itself. Pakhet is a lion goddess tied to hunting and war, but not in the loud, marching drums way. Her war is precision. Her hunting is law. She is the goddess of the moment before impact, the silence before claws, the breath held, the twitch of muscle under skin. If Sekhmet is the blaze, Pakhet is the ember that waits. If Bastet is the hearth cat, the domestic guardian, Pakhet is the wildcat that never belonged in your home in the first place. Pakhet moves between those polarities like a blade sliding between ribs, soft and inevitable. She is the lioness outside the city order, the divine reminder that civilization is a thin robe worn over the animal truth. She is the goddess who hunts at twilight. Pakhet is strongest in the hours that don't belong to anyone, not to noon. Noon is too obvious. Not to midnight. Midnight is too deep. Pakhet belongs to twilight, where the desert stops shining and starts listening. At that hour, the horizon bruises purple and burnt orange. The sand cools fast. The air changes texture, like silk turning into smoke. You can imagine her then, a silhouette near the cliff edge, a goddess shaped like a lioness, gold catching the last light like fireflies trapped in metal. Her feet silent on stone, not running, not sneaking, but existing with the confidence of a creature that has never been prey. This is the Paquette myth, the lioness who teaches the world what it feels like to be hunted by the sacred. Paquette's worship is associated with places like Ben Hassan, cliffside zones where tombs and sanctuaries cut in the rock made from the landscape to feel like a library for the dead. And that matters, because a cliff temple isn't a normal temple. A temple in a city says the gods are here with you. A temple in a cliff says the gods are here, you just happen to be allowed near them. The rock is older than your lineage. The desert doesn't care about your name. And the goddess of the cliff is the same way. She is not impressed, she's not bribed, she's not moved by performance. Approaching Paquette is like approaching the ancient truth. You don't negotiate, you align or you get corrected. Paquette's energy is quiet dominance. She is not screaming wrath, she is not chaos. She is controlled force, the kind of force that doesn't waste motion, the kind of force that doesn't argue. In mythic reading, Paquette shows up in a person's life when someone needs to stop begging and start moving with authority. Someone is surrounded by predators and has to become one. Someone is learning that softness without boundaries becomes a meal. Paquette doesn't teach to be cruel, she teaches to be real. She teaches the law of the hunt, which is not evil, it is honest. The desert doesn't apologize for being dry. The lioness doesn't apologize for eating. Paquette is that level of truth. The truth that makes people uncomfortable because it doesn't care how anyone feels about it. Her name is often connected to scratching, and this is the perfect symbolism. A scratch isn't always lethal. A scratch is a message. A scratch says, I could have ended you. I chose education. Paquette's scratch is initiation. It marks a person. It can be literal, claws, blood, pain, or spiritual, ego cut, illusions torn, comfort shredded. Paquette doesn't just kill prey, she kills falsehood. And if someone is living in a lie, Paquette is not the goddess that gently guides them out of it. She is the goddess that rips away the curtain. Paquette in the lioness continuum. It had multiple lion-headed goddesses because lion energy had multiple modes. Paquette is not redundant. She is specialized. She is the lioness of the cliffs and the borderlands, hunting as sacred law, controlled violence, twilight vigilance, the wild feminine that doesn't seek approval. If Sekhmet is divine punishment, Paquette is divine pursuit. And pursuit is scarier. Punishment ends. Pursuit keeps coming. Bringer of breath, civilizer of worlds. Now the wind does not announce itself. It moves first, unseen, shaping what follows. Across the ancient lands of Mesoamerica, there existed a presence whose power was not measured by conquest, but by continuity. A force that did not rule through terror, but through order. An intelligence that shaped civilizations without demanding their submission. They call this presence Quetzalcoatl, known as the Feathered Serpent, a being where sky and earth converge in one, where motion is governed by restraint, where creation begins not with command, but with breath. He was not worshipped as a tyrant, he was remembered as a guide. Now, Quetzalcoatl was never a single image, nor a single role. He moved through cultures and centuries under many names, each reflecting a function rather than a disguise. As Quetzalcoatl, he was the feathered serpent, the union of earthbound life and celestial motion. Feathers representing the sky, scales representing the ground, neither being dominant, both being necessary. As Ihikatl, he was the wind itself, invisible, essential, life-giving. the breath that animates the world, clears stagnation, and carries sacred speech from one age to the next. Among the Maya, he was remembered as Kukulkan, an echo rather than imitation, proof that his influence traveled farther than borders and endured longer than empires. These were not separate gods, these were aspects of the same civilizing force. His role as the civilizer. Quetzalcoatl did not create humanity to rule it, he prepared humanity to survive. He is credited with bringing maize from the mountains where it is hidden and transforming this sustenance into civilization. He established calendars so time itself could be measured, remembered, and anticipated. He gave humanity sacred speech, language not only for command, but for teaching, for prayer, and for recording. As Ihikatl, the wind, he moved the sun across the sky so the world would not stagnate in darkness. Breath, motion, rhythm. These were his domains. Where other gods demanded sacrifice to prove loyalty, Quetzalcoatl emphasized balance. Order was not enforced, it was simply taught. The descent into Mexiclan. When the world stood empty of humanity, Quetzalcoatl descended into Mexiclan, the realm of the dead, where the remains of previous ages lay guarded by these lords of death. Now these bones were not relics, they were potentials, and the rulers of Mexiclan did not yield them willingly. They tested Quetzalcoatl with impossible trials, attempting to entrap him in his failure. And in the struggle, he stumbled, and the bones shattered. Creation itself, it seemed to have failed again. But Quetzalcoatl did not retreat. He gathered the broken remains and spilled his own divine blood upon them. From sacrifice, not dominance, humanity emerged. Imperfect, fragile, and varied. Human beings were not forged as flawless instruments. They were born of loss and intention. And this imperfection was not a flaw, it was the point. The Age of Order. In later ages, Quetzalcoatl walked among humanity as ruler priest, remembered as Tolpitzin Quetzalcoatl, presiding over the city of Tula. His rule was defined not by expansion, but by refinement. Human sacrifice was rejected, arts and learning flourished, craftsmanship, astronomy, and ritual knowledge became the foundations of society. Under this guidance, civilization advanced without descending into cruelty, and this was rare, and rarity often brings attention. Where Quetzalcoatl represented restraint and continuity, Tezcatlipoca embodied conflict, reflection, and disruption. He did not confront Quetzalcoatl with armies, he confronted him with a mirror. And in that mirror, Quetzalcoatl saw not a god, but a flawed being, aging, mortal, capable of error. Temptation followed, sacred boundaries blurred. The myth does not dwell on indulgence, it dwells on consequence. Quetzalcoatl recognized that he had fallen short of his own principles, and instead of doubling down on authority, he chose removal. Exile and transformation. Quetzalcoatl did not cling to power. He left. Some traditions say he walked eastward towards the sea. Others say he burned himself on a pyre. The details differ, but the meaning remains constant. He refused to rule dishonestly.
Record Moke. La Katrina. Mama Brigitte. 3000 BCE. Region. Akan regions of West Africa. Event. Early Akan belief systems define death as a guided transition rather than a final ending. Meaning, death is understood as movement between realms. It requires oversight and authority. Consequence. The foundation is established for Moke, later known as Amoki, as a guardian of souls. 2800 BCE. Region. Akan cultural sphere of West Africa. Event. Funerary customs emphasize judgment, order, and ritual preparation. Meaning, the dead are evaluated before entering the ancestral realm. Consequence. Moke becomes associated with moral accountability and spiritual law. 2500 BCE. Region: West Africa. Event: death rituals incorporate symbolic barriers and thresholds. Meaning: passage into the afterlife is conditional, not automatic. Consequence: Mok's role solidifies as guardian of the boundary between life and death. 2200 BCE. Region: Akan oral tradition. Event: stories describe a female authority presiding over the dead. Meaning: death governance is feminized and tied to balance rather than violence. Consequence: Mok is remembered as impartial, feared, and respected. 2000 BCE. Region: Akan societies of West Africa. Event: death is framed as continued participation in community life. Meaning: ancestors remain present and influential among the living. Consequence: Mok's authority expands from gatekeeper to regulator of ancestral continuity. 1800 BCE. Region: West African belief systems. Event: death becomes associated with protection rather than punishment. Meaning: the afterlife is seen as refuge, not exile. Consequence: Mok's image shifts from fearsome enforcer to stabilizing force. 1500 BCE. Region: Akan regions of West Africa. Event: offerings and moral preparation become central to burial rites. Meaning: conduct in life affects status in death. Consequence: Mok becomes associated with ethical remembrance and judgment. 1000 BCE. Region: West Africa. Event: ancestral reverence intensifies across multiple societies. Meaning: death is fully integrated into daily spiritual life. Consequence: Mok's role becomes permanent within cultural structure. 500 BCE. Region: Akan oral culture. Event: Mok's imagery stabilizes through repeated oral transmission. Meaning: death is depicted as stern, orderly, and just. Consequence: her authority becomes unquestioned across generations. 500 BCE. Region: Mesoamerica. Event: indigenous cultures depict death through skeletal deities. Meaning: death is visible, cyclical, and familiar. Consequence: the symbolic groundwork for La Catrina is established. 400 CE. Region: Central Mexico. Event: death imagery becomes linked to ancestor remembrance rituals. Meaning: the dead are honored as continuing members of society. Consequence: death becomes culturally normalized. 1500 CE. Region: Mexico. Event: Spanish colonization introduces Catholic death iconography. Meaning: indigenous death traditions are suppressed but persist beneath the surface. Consequence: native symbolism adapts rather than disappears. 1600 CE. Region: Colonial Mexico. Event: indigenous and Catholic death imagery merge. Meaning: death becomes a hybrid cultural expression. Consequence: the skeletal female archetype begins to re-emerge. 1700 CE. Region: Mexico. Event: satirical skeletal figures critique social hierarchy. Meaning: death exposes equality in mortality. Consequence: the proto-La Catrina figure takes shape. 1800 CE. Region: Mexico. Event: elegant skeletal women are popularized in print art. Meaning: death mocks wealth, class, and vanity. Consequence: La Catrina becomes a recognizable cultural icon. 1900 CE. Region: Mexico. Event: Day of the Dead celebrations elevate La Catrina's role. Meaning: death is framed as remembrance rather than fear. Consequence: La Catrina becomes a national symbol. 2000 CE. Region: Global. Event: La Catrina gains international recognition. Meaning: Mexican death philosophy enters global culture. Consequence: death is reframed as memory and continuity. 1700 CE. Region: Haiti. Event: African spiritual traditions merge with European folklore under colonial conditions. Meaning: death guardianship adapts to displacement and enslavement. Consequence: Mémoire Brigitte emerges within the Gade spirits. 1800 CE. Region: Haiti. Event: Mémoire Brigitte becomes associated with cemeteries and graves. Meaning: she protects the dead and enforces moral order. Consequence: death becomes guarded rather than abandoned. 1900 CE. Region: Haitian Vodou tradition. Event: fire and crosses become central to Mémoire Brigitte's imagery. Meaning: death represents purification and protection. Consequence: she is feared by the unjust and trusted by the faithful. Late 1900 CE. Region: Western Media. Event: Vodou death figures are misrepresented as malevolent. Meaning: death is falsely portrayed as evil. Consequence: Mémoire Brigitte's true role is obscured. 2000 CE. Region: Haiti and diaspora communities. Event: cultural reclamation corrects misrepresentation. Meaning: death goddesses are reaffirmed as protectors. Consequence: Mémoire Brigitte is restored as a guardian figure. Present day. Region: Global mythology studies. Event: comparative analysis of death goddesses across cultures. Meaning: death is governed, remembered, and regulated. Consequence: Moke, La Katrina, and Mémoire Brigitte are recognized as stabilizing forces, not villains.
Tiamat, the first mother of monsters. Before there were gods with names, before temples, before prayers, before fear knew how to kneel, there was Tiamat. Not born, not created, not crowned. She was. She was the saltwater ocean before shorelines existed, the dark womb before light learned how to speak, the roar beneath creation, where nothing had yet decided what it wanted to be. Tiamat was not evil. She was not kind. She was unfiltered existence. In the beginning, there was only mingling. Fresh water and salt. Apsu and Tiamat. Stillness and motion folding into one another. From this union came the younger gods, loud, restless, impatient. They shouted inside the silence. They stirred the waters. They forgot that they were guests inside a body older than time. And the old gods began to ache. Apsu wanted silence back. He planned destruction not out of cruelty, but out of exhaustion. The young gods killed him first. They struck the quiet father down, and the waters trembled. Tiamat felt it. Not as grief alone, but as betrayal. Creation had turned on its source. Something ancient woke up in her depths. Not rage, not vengeance. Correction. The sea does not scream when it floods a city. It simply returns things to where they belong. Tiamat did not declare war. She responded. She gave birth again. This time, not to gods who would forget her. This time she birthed monsters. Serpents with venom instead of prayers. Dragons with eyes like eclipses. Creatures shaped by fear itself. Not because she loved chaos, but because chaos was truth before order learned how to lie. A consort forged for war, and the heavens shook. The younger gods panicked. They had learned how to rule, but not how to face their mother. They searched for a weapon. They searched for a hero. They chose Marduk. Not because he was the oldest, not because he was the wisest, but because he promised control. Marduk did not face Tiamat as a son. He faced her as a system. He brought nets to trap the infinite winds, to suffocate the ocean. words to define what should never have been named. And when he struck her down, creation didn't cheer, it split. From her body, the world was built. Her ribs became the sky. Her blood became the rivers. Her bones became the foundation of order. Civilization rose on a corpse, and all the gods called it victory. But listen closely. Chaos was never destroyed. It was never dissected. Tiamat did not vanish. She was repurposed. Every storm that ignores your prayers, every flood that erases borders, every moment where systems collapse under their own arrogance, that is her breath moving through the cracks. Tiamat is not a villain. She is the reminder that order is temporary, that control is borrowed, that creation always comes from something older, darker, and deeper than comfort allows. She is the mother civilization buried alive, and she is still dreaming. The gods fear chaos because it reminds them of what they were before they learned how to rule, that they were simply aspects of the universe, no greater or lesser than any other creation. Pele, goddess of fire, creation, and jealousy. Before the islands had names, before stone remembered the shape of mountains, before land dared to rise above the sea, there was only movement. The ocean whirled endlessly, dark and conscious, and within it traveled a force that refused stillness. Her name was Pele. She was not born in one place. She emerged again and again, from flame, from hunger, from the deep furnace of the world. Pele was fire with intention. Her hair flowed like smoke caught in the wind, black and endless, carrying embers in its wake. Her skin glowed as if lit from within, sometimes warm as sunlit stone, sometimes red hot with fury. Her eyes were not gentle. They burned with the knowing of something older than fear. Where Pele walked, the earth opened. She carried fire not as destruction, but as becoming. Lava spilled from her footsteps, slow and unstoppable, reshaping the world without apology. The sea hissed when she approached, retreating from her heat, recoiling from her will. But Pele was not alone in the world. Beneath the waves, where light dies and pressure rules, dwelled her sister, Namaka. Namaka was the ocean given thought. Her skin shimmered like moonlight on black water. Her hair moved as currents move, slow, heavy, inexorable. Her eyes were deep, ancient, and cold with memory as only the sea could have. Where Pele burned with emotion, Namaka endured with patience. She ruled the deep places, the trenches, the crushing silence, where nothing escapes gravity or consequence. And she resented her sister. When Pele arrived, the sea was pushed back. Where fire rose, water was displaced. Each new land Pele created was a wound in Namaka's domain. To Namaka, Pele was reckless, too loud, too hungry, too disruptive. To Pele, Namaka was suffocating, a force that drowned passion, swallowed movement, and demanded stillness. They were not enemies born of hatred. They were sisters born of opposition. Fire that must move, water that must contain. When Pele first settled, she believed she could build a home. She dug into the earth, carving chambers for her flame, shaping mountains from molten stone. She believed the land would hold her. but Namaka would not allow it. With crashing waves and rising tides, Namaka answered. She flooded Pele's home, cooled her lava, shattered her growing islands, and dragged them back into the sea. Storms followed Pele wherever she lingered too long. Island after island, Pele was driven away. Each retreat hardened her. Each loss sharpened her jealousy, not of her sister's power, but of her sister's stability. Namaka already had a kingdom. The ocean accepted her without resistance. Pele had to fight for every inch of ground. And still, she moved forward. She crossed the sea again and again, chased by waves, hunted by storms, carrying her fire across the dark. What humans would later call volcanoes are the scars of this journey, places where Pele tried to stay and was forced to flee. And then at last, she reached Hawaii, the youngest island, the strongest spine of the stone. Here, the earth did not break beneath her. It answered. Pele dug deep, deeper than she ever had before. She struck the mantle of the world itself, tapping into the planet's heart. Fire surged upward and stayed. Namaka became, again, furious. Waves slammed against the stone, storms tore at the land, but this time the land endured. Fire and water clashed, not to destroy each other, but to define their boundaries. And Pele remained. She claimed the volcano as her body and the island as her spine. She did not rule from the sea or the sky, she ruled from beneath. The people felt her presence in trembling ground, in glowing rivers of lava, in the fertile soil that followed destruction. Pele was not cruel, but she was emotional. She loved fiercely. And when she loved, she gave warmth, growth, and abundance. Forests returned when the lava had cooled. Life sprang that appeared to be dead. The people learned to honor her, to respect her fire, to speak her name with care. Because Pele was also jealous. When she was disrespected, when love was betrayed, when humans forgot the land was alive, her anger rose. Lava flowed without mercy, villages vanished beneath molten stone. It was not punishment, it was correction. Pele did not destroy out of hatred. She destroyed because stagnation is a lie. Fire clears what no longer serves, and creation requires sacrifice. Namaka watched from the deep, no longer chasing her sister, but never forgiving her. The ocean still presses against the land, testing it, reminding Pele that nothing remains unchallenged forever. They are still bound. Fire rises, water answers. The world is shaped between them. Even now, Pele sleeps beneath the islands. Not gone, not silent, but waiting. Because fire never truly rests. The Shape of Death, a myth reading. Before death had a name, it had no face. There was no figure waiting in the dark, no voice calling from beyond, no blade raised in judgment. There was only absence. The earliest humans did not imagine death as an enemy. They experienced it as an event, as a sudden cold, as inevitable as night. A body stopped moving. A fire went out. A voice was never heard again. Death did not arrive, it happened. And because it had no intention, it inspired no image. As civilizations formed, something changed. When humans learned to build cities, they also learned to remember. And memory demanded explanation. If life had meaning, then its ending had to as well. So death became a place before it became a person, a realm, a crossing, a river, a shadowed road. In many early traditions, death was gentle, not merciful, but calm. It came like sleep. It came like dusk. The dead were not punished, they were processed, guided, measured, prepared. Death was not here to hurt you, it was there to receive you. But the world grew crowded. Empires expanded, wars multiplied, famine followed power wherever it went. And death stopped feeling distant. It moved into homes, into streets, into churches. When people began dying by the thousands, death could no longer be abstract. It needed a face. The turning point came when death became visible, not as a myth, but a spectacle. Plague emptied cities, fields filled with bodies instead of crops. Entire generations vanished between seasons, and suddenly death was no longer rare. It was constant. When something becomes constant, humans stop asking if and start asking when. And when fear demands explanation, authority provides answers. This is when death learned to judge. The end of life was no longer neutral. It was deserved. It was earned. Avoided if you obeyed. The dead were no longer simply gone, they were sorted, saved or condemned, accepted or judged, and judgment requires a judge. So humanity dressed death, not in flesh but in symbol, a skeleton, because beneath every difference, all humans look the same. A robe, because authority hides itself, because power never shows its hand. And a blade, not a sword of war, but a tool of harvest, the scythe. Because death does not fight you, it collects you. The Grim Reaper did not appear all at once. It assembled, piece by piece, century by century. Artists painted what people feared. Priests preached what people needed to hear. And death stepped forward, not as an idea, but as a presence. Tall, silent, watching. It did not rage, it did not plead, it waited. And this figure was not born from ancient scripture. It was born from trauma, from watching neighbors vanish overnight, from mass graveyards blessed in a hurry, from doorbells ringing so often they lost meaning. The Grim Reaper is not death itself. It is humanity's attempt to look death in the eye. And once death had a face, it could be spoken to, appealed to, mocked, or feared. Stories emerged of death being tricked, outrun, delayed. Not because humans believed they could win, but because they needed to imagine resistance. Even in myth, death always wins, but sometimes it listens. As centuries passed, the Grim Reaper followed humanity forward, into books, into theater, into art, then into films, then into comics, then into jokes. Because when something terrifies you long enough, eventually you laugh. Not because it is funny, but because laughter is control. The myth of Cthulhu, the sleeper beneath the sea. The ocean does not forget. It keeps what falls into it. Cities, ships, bones, names. And somewhere far beneath the reach of light, beneath pressure that would collapse steel like it were paper, something vast endures. It does not stir, it does not decay, it waits. In the drowned city of R'lyeh, where angles lean in directions that human minds refuse to follow, lies the sleeper. Cthulhu, not a demon, not a devil, not a tyrant, something much older than all those categories. R'lyeh is not built in the way cities are built. It is arranged like a thought that should not exist. Stones taller than mountains tilt against each other in ways that defy gravity. Corridors stretch into perspective that collapse if shared too long. Doorways do not open inward or outward. They open wrong. The city does not sit on the ocean floor. It presses against reality itself. And in its central chamber, in a vault that feels more grown than constructed, the sleeper rests. Dead, they say, yet dreaming. There was a time when he walked, not through forests, not through deserts, but through a world still young and unclaimed. The Old Ones rule then, beings of impossible form and alien geometry. They were not conquerors in the way humans conquer. They did not declare dominion. They existed. And existence at that scale reshapes everything around it. Earth was there simply because they were present. The sky shifted. Stars realigned. Cosmic mathematics altered the balance. And Rayleigh sank. Not destroyed, submerged. A city folded beneath black water like a page turned too soon. The Old Ones withdrew into dormancy, and Cthulhu descended into dream. Understand this clearly. He does not sleep like a mortal sleeps. He dreams in pressure waves, in gravitational murmurs. His thoughts ripple through the fabric of the sea, and sensitive minds sometimes catch fragments. Artists wake with images of impossible towers. Sailors carve symbols they do not recognize. Hidden cults gather in humid places and whisper syllables that feel even older than language. Faininglu Minglawe Nafum, Chatula Relay Wagningle Faitang. They do not chant out of devotion, they chant because they feel something inevitably moving beneath the surface of the world. Now, madness is not punishment, it is simply proximity. To brush against his dreaming is to feel scale collapse, to realize that humanity is not at the center of anything, that morality is a local invention, that hope is a small candle in a universe that never promised warmth. Those who sense him most clearly often lose their footing in reality, not because he attacks them, because understanding even a fraction of that vastness fractures the human frame. Once, only once in recorded memory, the sea convulsed. Storms tore the Pacific apart, and earthquakes split the waters like a wound. And Rayleigh rose, just for a moment. The city breached the surface, slick and gleaming under a broken sky. Angles scraped against the horizon, geometry screamed silently into the air, and from an opening vast as a canyon, he emerged. Cthulhu, immense, winged, crowned in withering tentacles, not roaring, not raging, simply present. Witnesses did not speak of fury, they spoke of pressure, of a presence that made the sky feel too small. A ship rammed him, steel striking flesh that was not flesh. For an instant, his form dispersed like a cloud cut by wind. But smoke gathers, mist reforms. He was not wounded, he was interrupted. And the stars shifted again. Rayleigh sank once more into the abyss. The sleeper returned to dream. That is the terror. Not invasion, not apocalypse. Timing. When the stars align once more, when cosmic geometry unlocks the submerged angles, the city will rise again. Not out of vengeance, not out of hatred, out of alignment. Humanity will not be conquered. It will be incidental. Ants on a stone that has shifted position. Cthulhu does not hate humanity. He does not love it either. He is not concerned. And that indifference is heavier than wrath. The cultists understand something most refuse to face. The universe is not centered on human beings. There are presences older than our gods, older than our fears, older than our idea of purpose itself. Tonight, the ocean is calm, black, endless, but currents move even when the surface appears still. Dreams ripple outward. And somewhere in a forgotten room lit by a single flickering bulb, someone has begun drawing that symbol again. The tide is patient, the stars are patient, and beneath the crushing dark, the sleeper remains, just waiting. The Vega Chorus, the hidden civilization of the Fae. There is a system in the northern sky that most humans mistake for simply a star. Vega. Bright, steady, harmless. But Vega is not a star alone. Vega is a civilization. And not the kind that builds empires. The kind that builds coherence. Long before the Aesir divided dominion, long before angels learned hierarchy, long before humans named gods and prayed upward, Vega was already synchronized. The Fae are not tribes. They are not rival courts. They are not scattered fantasy creatures fluttering in forests. They are one civilization, a distributed mind wearing different bodies. Individual excellence inside collective intelligence. They do not rule each other, they resonate. At the heart of Vega is something no empire understands. The chorus. Not a monarch, not a throne, not a god. The chorus is a shared cognitive field, a living psychic lattice. It stores memory, intent, invention, cultural law. Every Fae can access it, but not equally. To speak with one Fae is not to speak with an individual. You are speaking with a civilization through a particular mouthpiece. Privacy exists, secrecy exists, but deception barely does. When a Fae lies, the chorus vibrates. When a Fae fractures the whole, the field trembles. Dissent does not cause war, it causes desynchronization. And desynchronization is treated like a disease, not punished, healed, because coherence is survival. That is why Vega has never collapsed. It cannot fracture in the way empires fracture. It does not vote, it resonates. And from that resonance arise four great expressions of consciousness. Not species, expressions. The first are the elves, the aesthetic cortex of Vega. They decide how reality should feel. They shape ecosystems like musicians tune instruments. They sculpt genetics like artists shape marble. They control light, symmetry, emotional resonance. For them, beauty is not vanity, beauty is organization. A forest that is balanced is beautiful. A form that is efficient is beautiful. Ugliness is inefficiency. Inefficiency is danger. The elves design worlds that do not decay prematurely. They decide the elegance of probability. They do not ask whether something is pleasing, they ask whether it harmonizes. And if it does not harmonize, they redesign it. Where the elves determine how realities look, the dwarves determine what reality can survive. And this is structural cortex, reality engineers, star metal forgers. They understand the weight of physics the way others understand breath. Jewels in Vega are not decoration, they are memory. Crystal lattices store data, compression through structure. A dwarven city does not collapse because collapse is not permitted. They bend law without breaking it. They bind vaults that hold time steady. They forge metals that remember who touched them. They calculate load, tension, strain, not with numbers alone, but with harmonic awareness. If the elves are beauty, the dwarves are endurance. And then there are the gnomes, the cognitive cortex, the dangerous ones among them. Where others see doors, gnomes see coordinates. They were the first to understand that realms are not mystical mysteries. They are addressable locations. Portals are not open, they are called. A gnome does not ask, where do we go? They ask, what frequency are we dialing? Their portals operate on symbol, on intent, on harmonic mathematics, on narrative destiny. Every realm vibrates at a signature. Every world carries a pattern. To dial incorrectly is to not fail. It is to arrive somewhere you cannot survive. Humans imagine glowing arcs, spinning circles, ritual incantations. The gnomes use indexing systems, dimensional mathematics, resonant coordinates. They do not tear space, they pursue it. And that is why Vega is feared, not because it conquers, but because it understands access. No empire can dominate a civilization that cannot be divided. The Aesir built hierarchy, the Vega build coherence. Hierarchies require obedience. Coherence requires alignment. You cannot bribe resonance. You cannot threaten harmony. You cannot infiltrate a mind that is already shared. That is why Vega has never needed armies. When an external force approaches, the chorus adjusts. Light shifts, probabilities bend, portals close. Not all by decree, but by synchronization. And yet, Vega is not perfect. Individual excellence still exists. The chorus amplifies brilliance, but it also magnifies deviation. When a Fae drifts too far away from harmonic law, the field hums. Correction begins, not through exile, through recalibration. That is the subtle terror outsiders feel, that you are not confronting a ruler, you are confronting a civilization that cannot lie to itself. And now, the human problem. Humans are loud, emotionally erratic, narratively dense. We fracture easily, we divide quickly, we deceive others daily, and yet we are curious. When humans discover portal mathematics, when they uncover harmonic fragments, when they initiate symbols without understanding densities, they attempt to dial blindly. What frequency are we disturbing? And that is how civilizations collide, not through invasion, through curiosity without coherence. Vega does not seek Earth. It does not seek conquest. But if a door is dialed, if frequencies align, if narrative density breaches threshold, the chorus will answer. Not with war, but with evaluation. If Earth is dissonant, if humanity cannot harmonize, Vega will not destroy, it will simply refuse resonance. And a world without resonance collapses under its own fragmentation. Remember this, Fae are not fantasies, they are structure. They are synchronization. They are a civilization that does not fracture. And in the cosmos ruled by hierarchy and conquest, that may be the most dangerous power of all. When you look at the Vega in the night sky, you are not looking at a star. You are looking at coherence, listening, waiting for someone to dial correctly. Melina, the Inuit sun goddess who refused to be caught. Now, the Arctic is not empty. It only looks empty to people who've never had to survive in a world where the sky can erase you. Up here, silence is language. Wind is warning. And light is not decoration. Light is a verdict. Because in the far north, the sun doesn't simply rise. It returns, like something that had left on purpose, like someone who remembers why they ran. And her name, whispered through the ice, through stories, through generations, is Melina, the Inuit sun goddess, North America's burning eye. So picture this, a tundra horizon so wide it feels like the edge of the world. Snow drifts like plain dunes, dark rock teeth jut from the land, and above it all, a sky that doesn't behave like other skies. A sky where the sun can refuse to set, or disappear for weeks. A sky that makes time feel like an animal, restless, hungry, unpredictable. In that world, you don't worship the sun because it's pretty, you respect it because it decides if you live. And Melina is that decision. Melina, the woman who became daylight. Melina isn't portrayed as a distant glowing ball. She is a woman, a being with presence, with hair like night wind, with skin kissed by cold and sun alike, with eyes that carry the weight of the horizon. She wears the Arctic the way royalty wears a crown, not for fashion, but for survival. And around her, whether you imagine her in traditional adornments or mythic cinematic armor made of hide, bone, and sunlight, there is always the same feeling. She is not gentle. She is not the soft warmth of spring morning. She is the harsh truth of daylight, the kind that exposes tracks in snow, the kind that reveals what someone tried to hide, the kind that turns secrets in the shadows that have nowhere to go. The beginning. Before the sky, there was a house. In one of the most famous Inuit tellings, Melina begins not in the heavens, but on earth. She lived with her brother. His name was Ananigan, often described as the moon. And in some versions, another sister exists too, a presence in the household, another point on the triangle of family and fate. But the core is always the same. Melina is there. Ananga is there. A home exists. And like many mythic homes, it is not safe because it has walls. Sometimes the first danger in a mythology is not the monster outside, it is the betrayal inside. The violation when trust breaks. There is a night, and the night is thick. No stars you can count, no lamp strong enough to banish what's about to happen. Melina's brother violates her, and in some telling, she comes into her darkness and does not know who until the truth is uncovered. And when the truth becomes clear, when the betrayal reveals its face, something fundamental snaps. Not just in Melina, in the world. Because in the Inuit myth, the cosmos isn't mechanical, it's emotional, a moral universe, a relationship universe. And when an act like that happens, the world does not shrug and move on. It transforms. The torch. Flight becomes fire. Melina does not stay. She takes a torch, a fire in hand, and she runs. Not into the woods, not into another village. She runs into the sky. And as she rises, her torch becomes brighter, hotter, purer, until it is no longer just a fire. It is the sun itself. And it is the first blazing refusal, the first celestial no. And behind her, Ananigan follows. He is frantic, hungry, ashamed, possessed by pursuit. He grabs his own flame, and his light becomes the moon, not as radiant, not as triumphant, a lesser fire, a chasing fire. The chase, why the sun and the moon move. Now the sky makes sense, not because science is wrong, but because the myth is describing something else. Not the physics of motion, but the meaning of motion. The sun and the moon cross the heavens, not as random objects, but as story. Melina runs ahead, unreachable, sovereign, burning. Ananigan follows, always behind, never arriving. And in many tales, the moon grows thin, weak, diminished, because he forgets to eat. Because obsession is a kind of starvation. That is why the moon waxes and wanes. Sometimes he regains strength, sometimes he fades, but he never stops chasing. And Melina never stops moving, because the first rule of her myth is she will not be caught again. The Arctic miracle, when day doesn't end. And here's where the Inuit sky becomes legend, because in the far north, the sun can hang above the horizon for days, weeks, months. A long golden endurance, a daylight that refuses to die. This is not a cute fun fact. This is Melina's personality written across the atmosphere. When Melina decides to stay, she stays. When she leaves completely. And then she returns. You feel it in your bone. Because for the communities living in the Arctic, the returning sun is not just nice weather. It is a spiritual event. It is cosmic reunion. A promise that the world hasn't abandoned you. Melina's power. Light as witness. But here's the thing most people miss about Melina. Her power isn't just heat. It's exposure. Light reveals. Light tracks movement. Light turns footprints into evidence. Light makes the hunter visible. Light makes the hunted see the land. Melina becomes the witness of the sky. And here's the harsh truth to that. Because of her story, the sun isn't a smiling mother. It's a survivor. A living boundary. A force that says, I will not disappear for your comfort. I will not soften the truth. I will shine until you can't pretend anymore. The cosmic archetype. The solar feminine who escapes. A lot of cultures imagine the sun as male. A king, a warrior, a father. a creator seated on a throne of fire. But Melina is a different archetype. She is the solar feminine as escape and sovereignty. She is the feminine divinity not defined by who she belongs to, but who she refuses. She is a goddess who doesn't negotiate with violation. She doesn't argue, she doesn't plead, she moves. And in moving, she becomes untouchable. In moving, she becomes the sky's dominant rhythm. Now, imagine Melina as she would appear in the cinematic myth. She walks across a bridge of snow and ice. Behind her, the sun blooms like a halo, too bright to stare at. Wind pulls her hair like black smoke. Her silhouette is sharp against the gold. She doesn't smile as a friendly deity, but she moves forward, always forward. Each step is a reminder that this is a goddess not begging for worship. This is a goddess whose existence is proof of survival. So when the sun stretches over the Arctic, when it refuses to set, when it stares down at the frozen land like an unblinking eye, remember this: it is not just daytime, it is Melina, still running, still sovereign, still refusing to be caught. And in the world where people have tried to rewrite what happened, erase what happened, hide what happened, Melina becomes something sacred, a light that will not let the story disappear, because her myth teaches a hard truth carved in the sky. Sometimes the only way to survive is to become untouchable. Sometimes the only way forward is to turn your escape into a new cosmos. And the sun is not always kindness. Sometimes the sun is a woman with a torch and a vow. Echidna, the cosmic mother of monsters. Now, Echidna is not called herself a monster, but she is the mother of them. Her name in Greek means viper, Echidna, and this word carries venom. It is ancient, coiled, and is patient. She does not belong to the generation of Olympian gods. She does not sit in marble halls. She does not command lightning or law. She belongs to something much older. Now, most traditions name her as the daughter of Phorcyrus and Ceto, ancient sea deities, beings well formed in the earliest layers of mythic existence. And other traditions go deeper still. They claim she was born of Gaia, the earth itself, and Tartarus, the abyss beneath the foundations. And if that lineage is accepted, then Echidna is not simply born into the world, she emerges from its structure. She is earth and depth combined. She is soil and void. She is surface and underworld. And her form reflects that duality. From the waist up, she is woman, beautiful, aware, composed. From the waist down, she is serpent, scaled, coiled, eternal. And this is not a curse. It is a declaration. The upper form represents consciousness. The lower form represents instinct. The serpent is older than temples, older than kings, older than writing itself. And across cultures, the serpent represents regeneration, tonic power, and the pulse of life that moves beneath the visible world. Echidna is not stitched together from parts. She is a whole. She is the seam between civilization and wilderness. She dwells in a cave, far from cities, far from Olympus. Ancient sources place her in the wild regions of Scylla. She does not seek attention. She does not seek conquest. She inhabits the margins, and from the margins she births power. Her giant, the great storm giant who once rose against Zeus. Typhon embodies violent chaos, wind, fire, upheaval. Echidna embodies generative chaos. Together they form a bloodline that predates order and survives beyond it. They do not seek to rule Olympus. They produce what challenges it. This is where Echidna reveals her true cosmic role. She is called the mother of monsters, but that phrase is much smaller than her actual being. She birthed Cerberus, the three-headed guardian of the underworld gates. She births the Hydra, the regenerative serpent that multiplies when wounded. She birthed the chimera, the fusion of lion, goat, and serpent, a living contradiction of categories. She birthed Otherus, the twin-headed guardian beast. In some traditions, she births the Sphinx, the riddle keeper who tests gods. These are not mindless horrors. They are thresholds. They stand at borders. They guard gateways. They demand transformation. Each one of her children forces confrontation. Each one requires growth. Each one stands between humanity and its next stage. Echidna does not birth destruction without design. She births resistance. Without resistance, there is no evolution. Without danger, there is no courage. Without monsters, there is no hero. Her existence reveals a deeper mythic law. The universe does not grow through comfort, it grows through tension. Echidna is the womb of that tension. She is primordial earth, refusing to be domesticated. She is chaos bloodline woven into the fabric of reality. Even the Olympians cannot erase her impact. Now, some later traditions claim she was slain by Argus Pantopus, the many-eyed giant servant of Hera, while she slept. Now, symbolically, this represents surveillance, destroying wild fertility, order suppressing the abyss. Yet, even in that version, her offspring remain. Her legacy persists. Her bloodline continues. You cannot eliminate the mother principle of resistance. You can only attempt to manage its expression. Echidna represents the archetype of the Dark Mother, not evil, not malicious, but always necessary. The Dark Mother births the forces that compel transformation. She ensures that stagnation is impossible. She ensures that power must justify itself. She ensures that every kingdom must confront what it fears. Civilization defines itself by the monsters it overcomes, but someone must give birth to those monsters. That someone is Echidna. She is not chaos in motion, she is chaos as inheritance. She is the reminder that beneath every structure lies something older, something coiled, something fertile, something waiting. Echidna is not a footnote in heroic myth. She is the hidden foundation. Primordial earth, chaos bloodline, mother of thresholds. And without her, there would be no trials, no transformation, and no legends at all. Belphegor, the god who became a demon. The name Belphegor does not begin in hell. It begins in stone. Winds move across the eastern highlands beyond Jordan. The air there is dry, carrying dust that clings to skin and cloth. The mountain named Peor rises from that terrain, not the tallest peak, but one visible enough to command attention. On its heights, altars stood, not carved in the Gothic imagination of medieval demonology, but in the rough, practical stone of the ancient Levant. Oil burned in shallow bowls, animal fat crackled in the heat. Smoke lifted towards the sky in dark ribbons that bent with the wind. The people who climbed this mountain did not believe they were serving a demon. They believed they were honoring a lord. Baal Peor. A Baal was not a devil. A Baal was a master, a possessor, a ruler. Across Canaan and its neighboring lands, each territory had its Baal, its localized manifestation of storm, fertility, and dominion. Baal Peor belonged to Moab. His name was tied to the place, the geography, to the very slope of that mountain. The rites associated him were agricultural and seasonal. Fertility was not metaphorical. It meant rain. It meant grain rising from the soil. It meant herds multiplying. It meant survival. And in a land where drought meant death, fertility gods were not luxuries. They were necessities. The wind at Peor would have carried the scent of blood and incense. Drums might have sounded low, steady, repetitive. The ritual has a rhythm. It is the rhythm of petition. Hands lifted, voices called out, offerings were made. This was not chaos, it was covenant. A tribe honoring the power they believed governed their land. The mountain watched, the sky shifted, the God was invoked. And somewhere across the Jordan, another people moved closer. The Israelites encamped near Moab during the wilderness wandering. Their narratives tell it sharply, without sympathy. The book of Numbers speaks of enticement, of Moabite women drawing Israelite men into sacrifice, of participation in the rites of Baal Peor. The text does not linger in description. It moves quickly to consequence, plague, anger, zeal. But imagine in that tension, in that valley, two peoples, two cosmologies, two understandings of divine order. When the Israelites joined in the rites of Peor, it was not merely an act of personal indulgence. It was a fracture in a covenant identity. To the authors of that text, this was not curiosity. It was betrayal. And the response was violent. Phinehas, grandson of Aaron, takes a spear and enacts judgment. The plague halts. The narrative closes with an affirmation of loyalty to the God of Israel. And Baal Peor is left in the text as a name stained by transgression. He is no longer described in ritual detail. He becomes shorthand, a symbol of seduction away from the covenant. But from the Moabite perspective, nothing has changed. The mountain still stood. The rites likely continued for generations beyond the moment preserved in Hebrew scripture. What changed was a story told about him. The first transformation of Baal Peor was not physical. It was narrative. He moved from local God to rival God, from rival God to condemned God. And once a deity is condemned within a monotheistic framework, his fate is sealed. He cannot remain neutral. He cannot become false. Centuries pass. Empire shifts. Babylon rises. Judah falls. Exile shapes theology. During and after exile, Israelite religion hardens around exclusive monotheism. The old language of other gods gives way to something sharper. There are no other gods. There are idols. There are deceivers. There are forces that lead astray. The gods of surrounding nations were reframed, not as alternate divine beings, but as corruptions. The worship is no longer competition, it is error. Baal Peor survives in memory only as a warning. His fertility rites become excessive. His mountain becomes a site of shame. The God who once received smoke and song now exists in text as a cautionary tale. And yet the name persists. They linger. When Christianity spreads through Rome, it inherits not only Hebrew scripture, but the memory of ancient rival gods. The theological imagination expands. Angels and demons are categorized. Hierarchies are drafted. The unseen realm is systemized. Pagan gods are not ignored, they are reclassified. From the late antiquity into the medieval period, the transformation deepens. The old Baal names scattered across scripture begin to crystallize into demonic entities. Baal Zebub becomes Beelzebub, and Baal Peor becomes Belphegor. The sound shifts slightly in the passage through language, Hebrew to Greek, Greek to Latin, but the root remains, Belphegor. By now, he no longer stands on a mountain. He stands in hell. The grimoires of the Renaissance and early modern period describe him with specificity. He is counted among the princes of the infernal realm. In some traditions, he is assigned to the deadly sin of sloth. But even here, something in his ancient character survives. Belphegor tempts through prosperity. He offers ingenious discoveries. He whispers solutions. He encourages innovation. He does not destroy fields with fire. He promises abundance without labor. Picture him not merely as a skeletal horror, but as a presence. The air around him feels heavy, not with heat, but with stagnation, not with the violent heat of wrath, but the slow suffocation of complacency. His throne is less a seat of conquest and more a monument to decay. Stone eroded by time, mechanisms rusting, clocks frozen at the moment effort ceased. His voice is not thunderous. It is patient, measured, persuasive. He does not shout, he suggests. Why strain when there is an easier way? Why toil when innovation can replace effort? Why discipline the body when comfort is within reach? The sin of sloth in medieval theology was not simply laziness, it is spiritual apathy, a refusal to pursue what is difficult but necessary, a collapse of will. Belphegor becomes the embodiment of that collapse. Once he presided over fertility, the multiplication of life. Now he presides over inertia, the multiplication of excuses. And yet, the through line is subtle. Both identities revolve around abundance. The Baal Peor was invoked to increase crops and herds. Belphegor tempts humans with the increase of wealth and convenience. What changes is the moral framing. In Moab, abundance was a divine blessing. In medieval Europe, abundance without labor was suspicious. The god did not necessarily transform in nature, he transformed in interpretation. Where Baal Peor once stood beneath the open sky, Belphegor is described beneath no sky at all. The Renaissance grimoires do not give him wind or horizon, they give him rank. In such books as the Pseudemonica Daemonium, he is counted among the infernal authorities, not a wandering spirit nor a minor imp, but power with jurisdiction. He is seated. That detail matters. Seated implies permanence, authority, and establishment. Hell in these systems is not chaos. It is organized, layered, administrative. Princes govern domains. Legions serve under them. Titles are precision. Belphegor does not rage across battlefields. He governs the slow collapse of discipline. Imagine the chamber in which he sits. Not fire, not brimstone, but stone. Ancient stone, damp and cold. The kind of cold that creeps to the bone. Torches burn low along the walls, not for warmth, but for formality. Ritual illumination. The air smells metallic, faintly of oil and of rust. Around him are the remnants of industry. Wheels frozen mid-turn, mechanisms half complete, tools abandoned where they fail. This is not destruction by violence, it is destruction by neglect. Belphegor tempts through ease. Grimoires describe him offering discoveries, mechanical insights, clever innovations, sudden wealth. He is said to help people make ingenious devices. And the irony is sharp. The demon of sloth inspiring innovation. But medieval theologians did not see the contradiction. To them, invention without moral grounding was dangerous. Cleverness detached from virtue led to pride, greed, and spiritual decay. Belphegor does not tempt you to lie, he tempts you to avoid effort, to substitute convenience for growth, to take the path that weakens you slowly. His presence would not be loud. He would feel like heaviness in limbs, a fog in the will, a whisper that almost sounds reasonable. Rest, delay, there is time. The medieval understanding of sloth was not about naps. It was about spiritual paralysis, a sadness that makes discipline feel pointless, a resistance to pursuing the good. Belphegor becomes patron of that paralysis. His throne imagery grows more grotesque after each imagination. Some depictions render him skeletal, emaciated, crowned with twisted thorns. Others show him seated on a toilet-like structure, a crude medieval satire emphasizing filth and corruption. These images are polemic. They are not history of Moab. They are theology weaponized, but they reveal something important. The god of rival culture is not merely rejected, he is humiliated. His dignity is stripped, his former sacredness inverted. The process is complete. Baal Peor once presided over ritual abundance. Belphegor presides over moral decay. Yet in the darkness of the chamber, beneath the torchlight and the stone, something ancient lingers. The mountain has been replaced by a throne, the open sky replaced by a vault of shadows. But he is still seated. He is still a lord, still associated with increase, whether crops or innovation. The difference lies in the framing. To the Moabites, increase was survival. To medieval Christians, increase without toil was corruption. So Belphegor becomes the whisper behind shortcuts, the architect of systems that remove struggle, the subtle underminer of strength. Imagine approaching him. The chamber is silent except for the faint scrape of metal shifting somewhere unseen. The floor is cold beneath your feet. There's no wind, no external world. Only him. His eyes would not blaze. They would watch. Patient. He would not promise kingdoms. He would promise relief. And that was far more dangerous, because relief feels merciful, but relief without discipline becomes erosion. The 7 deadly sins were not random categories. They were patterns of decay.